Hello, hello. Good afternoon, good morning, good wherever your time zone is. Welcome again to our Dark Conversations. Victor, how are you today?
Hello, everyone. Today has been a great day. It's a bit hot here in La Rioja, so.
Oh, great.
Uh,
Simon, just you're back.
Here it is. Yeah. Hello, Simon. How are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfectly.
Good.
I missed. I think I missed everything out there for a second. I managed to log myself out of my Google account right at the last minute, which was great.
No problem. Always happen. Alfredo, how are you?
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, good. Normal week. The weather is like the same here in Netherlands, so yeah. So
And Andreu?
I'm not totally fine because I think my voice is not on the streaming, and I'm strange. Always strange things happen with the sound. Are any of you listening to the streaming? So Randall, Jose, Marco, they are not listening to me at all.
You are on the stream. I can hear you on the stream.
Yeah?
So,
You can hear me?
yeah, on the stream. When I'm muted, I'm muted the stream. Yeah.
You listen to me on the stream.
Yeah,
Yes, I can confirm it. Yeah, I am.
Yeah. So it's some trouble with my different ears. You know, I have many pieces checking the sound. So we are good. All the four, we are good on the streaming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Victor. So what's today? All four of you. Thank you very much, Randall. What's the thing for these dark conversations, Victor?
Well, I think the most announcement 2 weeks ago was Michael Thompson published the 2025 roadmap as a transparency as a core goal of Flutter open source project. So it's great to see the roadmap for this new year. For this year, I'm not gonna say new because, well, actually we are just in the half. Accessibility is. I don't know. What do you think, guys? I'm happy with the goals of 2024. With some accessibility capabilities on mobile platforms, at least. But, well, they are saying in 2025 we plan to focus on further accessibility support for the web platform. So that sounds great. Performance. They plan on complete the iOS migration to Impella, removing the skier backend completely. And also with Android, there was some issues with older devices. So they expect to continue working harder with that part. For me, the completing the support of Swift Package Manager, this is something that probably all of us have to raise the hand because I don't know about you, but in my case, I have been supporting the migration. I don't remember the number, but at least 5 or 10 open source project as minimum. I have been migrating from CocoaPod to Swift Package Manager. So I think probably, I don't know, Simon, what do you think regarding this? Have you updated some?
I have a couple of massive projects right now, and I haven't yet attempted it, and I'm very scared to attempt it at the moment. I think it shouldn't be too bad. I think quite a few packages are now compatible. There is regarding the Swift Package Manager, there is also an initiative with the Flutter favorites to get all the Flutter favorites pushed over to using the Swift Package Manager as well, which I think will also help because a lot of those are the primary packages that everyone uses. So like the Plus packages, for example, right? Like they're used by lots of people.
Yeah, let me move a bit the conversation because actually, Simon, you are, I mean, I'm not going to say behind, but as a big part of the Flutter community repository of packages.
Yeah, so if you want a bit of background around that, I'm going to take you, I'll give you a bit of my, shall I give you a bit of my background that kind of led into it? That might explain things. So in late 2017, so I've got a developer agency here in London. It's a company I founded in 2015, and we were doing Android and iOS without any sort of cross-platform products. Now, I've been doing Android development for a good 15 years or something like that. I don't know, long time. However, 2009, whenever that was ago. And one of the big things there was cross-platform across the years, and Cordova, PhoneGap, lots of other weird technologies came along over the time. And when Flutter came out, I'm sad to say that I completely dismissed it. I was like, another cross-platform thing, this is going to be terrible. And then it wasn't until I was invited to Google's headquarters along with some other people that run agencies that we were presented to by Google about Flutter. And then I realized, oh my God, Flutter is brilliant. This was when it was alpha. This was like really early days, right? So this was September 2017. And then I picked up Flutter immediately and realized this is brilliant. This solves a bunch of the problems we have over the years with Android apps. It solved a bunch of issues in terms of developing iOS apps. It was just like, it wasn't web as well. So we basically transitioned the company within the next 6 months to just being Flutter only. And all the projects, we would just, it doesn't matter if they said, I want an Android app. Okay, we'll build it in Flutter. It's still an Android app, right? I want an iOS app. Great, we'll build it in Flutter. It's still an iOS app, right? And it just so happens, you can have it cross-platform, right? So I think it was the following March when Flutter went beta, and we were putting stuff into me and several other people at the time. We're grouping together, and we were adding into the Flutter engine and the Flutter main repository at the time, the very early days. And then, so for example, I added the hardware keyboard support for Android. So previously, people won't know how painful this was unless you were there during alpha. To enter into a Flutter app, you had to use the on-screen keyboard. That meant you had to tap on all the keys on the keyboard. It was terrible. So as a developer, every time I'd like type in a login, I was like, I can't just type it on my keyboard. I would have to like physically click the mouse on every button. It was terrible. So I was like, I need to fix this. So, anyway, so around that time,
I'm sorry. One question, just and a bit of joke. Method Channel was launched in that moment, or it was harder?
No, so this was Method Channels at the time. It was, I don't think we had the JSON codec at the time. It was just the standard codec, but it wasn't too bad, to be honest. This was actually using the system channels to do the input client. So it was quite early on. It was really stable, to be honest. That's why I was happy with it, right? That's why we started building products. Even we started shipping products when it was alpha, because we could iterate and update those products when it became beta. Whenever there was a bug, we could go in and fix it. So this is the thing, like, and I think people misunderstand this. Like, a Flutter app is an Android app. A Flutter app is an iOS app. At the end of the day, the result is that, right? Which means if you've got the talent on your team, like you've got Android and iOS talent, if you've got a bug with Flutter in the iOS piece, or you got a bug with Flutter in the Android piece, you can go fix it yourself. It's open source. And then you can compile your Flutter app with that version of Flutter that you've patched if you want to, right? So it still seems extreme to many people, but it's not that cumbersome or difficult. I think it was definitely a lot more. Everyone was doing it when it was alpha because that was the way you fix bugs, right? During alpha, I think now it becomes more of a make tickets and let the Flutter team fix stuff. Mainly, I think from like there's not many of the community that actually go ahead and decide to build the engine and to build the Flutter repo themselves or anything like that, right? But you can still do it. Anyway, so your original question was about the Flutter community. So at that time, there was a few of us in the Gitter chat because the way everyone communicated around Flutter was through is like gitter.im. It's a chat thing that's built around GitHub. It's weird, web chat, and it was atrocious. There was like hundreds of one chat channel for everyone. So you couldn't do threads. You couldn't do like reply to one. You literally was just everyone's messages scrolling past, and it was impossible to like answer people's questions and have like a train of thought trying to help someone fix something. So we set up a Slack channel for the Flutter community, and then we started up a brand for the Flutter community. We started up this idea that there were several packages that people had in the community, try and get them under one roof. There's several packages that were being not managed anymore, that needed someone to manage them. They went into the Flutter community. We just started up like this whole thing. Then we realized that we all wanted to post content about Flutter, so we set up the Medium, and I think we were getting around 1 million minutes read every month. I don't know, I could look up the stats now. It's still quite busy now. We set up a Twitter bot, essentially, which was a person, but it's still like it was the Twitter Flutter community Twitter account, which was basically just whenever a post goes out on the Medium, it goes out on the Twitter as well. So people can get notified when new content goes out. And then we found there was lots of events starting up, and GDG groups started picking up Flutter and everything else. So we started saying, okay, well, you can announce on our feed. We got lots of people. You can announce your stuff. So yeah, it's kind of just the idea is just here's a community account that everyone can use, right? And same goes for like the GitHub organization. A lot of it is around just having people in the community, having a place where they can put their packages. And I won't talk about who happened. I'm going to talk about an incident that happened in the community. I won't talk about who because it's private information. But someone in the community actually got taken into hospital, and they have a package. And what happened was no one could contact them. No one knew how to, apart from online, no one had a phone number for these people, and their package had bugs in it, which was a fundamental package that lots of other packages depended on. And we were like, okay, we're going to have to fork the package. We're going to have to tell everyone how to sort of get over to this other package. And luckily, he came back to the community. He was okay. He updated. It's all okay, right? But one of the reasons why we have the Flutter community is if a package author does, become ill or not able to do something, someone else can pick up triage the bugs or maintain the package or that kind of thing as well. And I think that's really important because too often do open source projects just die, like for no reason whatsoever. Like it happens way too often. Victor, your
one question. Yeah, one question regarding this. What about if someone wants to? I mean, can anyone out of the Flutter community try to create a package? There is a way to request, like, hey, Flutter community, would you mind to put under umbrella?
Yeah, I mean, anyone can make a request on the GitHub. There's some templates on there that you can kind of like make a request. It's not been as actively managed as I would liked in the recent, and should I say maybe the recent year, but it's definitely something that we need to get towards more. Yes. There's also, I guess, when it comes to that, the problem here is that people you can't just chuck a package to someone and say maintain this, right? Like that's not what this is, right? It's under the umbrella. You're still maintaining your package, and then let's say you can't maintain your package, well, you can request and say, I'm not going to be able to maintain my package. Can you help me find someone, right? And most often, like, you go to the people that are submitting the most PRs to an open source repository, right? You go to the people that are most communicative in the issues, that are interested in the package, and find out if they're interested in maintaining that package at the end of the day. But we don't have like an infinite set of people that we can say, here, you should have this package. Equally, I would love it if we had like a maybe not a mailing list, but something similar where people could like register their interest in being that they want to maintain Flutter and open source packages. And then if something comes up, we can put out, is anyone interested in maintaining this package? The authors no longer can no longer maintain it for whatever reason, you know.
Alfredo, what was your question, Alfredo? Go.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Like as a developer, when I started to build apps and investigating about the open source community, for me, it's very interesting how the people can arrange ourselves, like how people without any money interest or without a job definition, they group together to build an open source project that other people can use it. So, Simon, what is your experience also in the Flutter community in London? Because you are a very active part of the Flutter community in London, right?
It's kind of interesting you say that, right? I mean, I think we have the Flutter London meetup group that I co-host with a friend, George Medvey. He's been organising that thoroughly, but I mean, if we give an example, we did the last meetup got 70 people to meet up, which, you know, is quite a lot, to be honest. I think the meetup actually, well, I can talk about it. I'll talk briefly about the meetup, but the meetup was probably roughly 25, 30 people would always turn up, right? Like it was a nice sort of number for a meetup. And we got a location. This was a while ago, right? This was like early days. And then we got a location given to us where we would have every certain time slot on once a month on a certain day every month, the same location. And they had projectors, they had staff, they had cameras, they had everything. It was brilliant, and we didn't have to pay for it, right? It was a code learning center in London. It was really good. And then COVID hit. They took a hit on their bottom line. They had to close. And then since COVID, it's been really difficult to build. So people didn't want to go out, obviously, during COVID. That was a whole thing. And then since COVID, it's been slowly building back up. And the biggest thing that we had, there was a benefit to our meetup, was that one, like I would say it to every meetup GDG organizer as well, have a consistent location, a consistent time. Because the inconsistency is when you can have a lot of dropout, right? Where people know, oh, it's this day of it was always a Tuesday. The meetup's always on a Tuesday or on a Wednesday, having that consistency is key. And then also same time, same location, if you can do it. At least maybe once every 6, like you have maybe a set of locations that you're always going between, if you can arrange it. But yeah, and then nothing's free. And we were so lucky with what we got. We'd obviously put them as sponsors on all the videos and materials when we're there, like, but I think there's it's pretty difficult to run a meetup, but equally everyone should. Like, it's that kind of thing that if you don't organize community, no one's going to communicate. Right? Everyone's, especially in the modern time, everyone's in their little silos, right? Sitting in front of their computer screens. So I think that there's lots of, when it comes to, you talked about the community in London, there's lots of startups in London that are choosing to use Flutter. Equally, there's now, that you didn't used to be, I'd say there's a lot more big companies using it. So there's now quite a few big corporates in the UK using Flutter. So financial sector is picking up hugely, and so it should. And the benefit for the financial sector is that the code is compiled into a single binary, which you can protect, you can encrypt, you can do other things, which basically means that it's a lot easier to maintain their product than it would be to write the code in C, because that's what a lot of banking sector apps do. They write their interface or some of the outside bits in Java or Kotlin or whatever in Android, and Swift, Objective-C, whatever in iOS. And they would have a shared C library which would have all of their business logic and all the actual stuff, and then they could then encrypt that and keep it all private and have private keys and all the rest of it.
I am seeing this in Spain also growing up. Big companies now since the last year. I don't know if in Netherlands, Alfredo, you have the same feeling or, but in my case, I am seeing banking, finance. Some big companies are, maybe they are not moving the most of the main projects or products, but they are doing, giving a chance. At least this is what I am seeing.
There's some big banking apps here that are now their primary apps are Flutter. Yep. There's also BT here, British Telecom, which is the main national supplier for communications in the UK, and they use Flutter in like all of their apps. Like they've got I think it was like 100 apps, but it's like all like internal product stuff as well as their external. They have like 3 or 4 like external facing products for their customers, and they have a bunch of apps to like manage their infrastructure network, which is written in Flutter as well. So there's some surprising things that I think the problem here is we never hear these stories. You don't get a financial institute saying we're using Flutter, right? That's not really.
This happens around. It's not a matter of UK. It happens all the world. Companies do not want to share what they are doing because it's so secret for their business logic.
Yeah, unless they are hiring people.
There's a great, just to say, if anyone's watching, there's a great app called Flutter Shark. Have you guys heard of this?
No.
Nope.
Okay. I wanted you guys to try this now. Get your phones. Go to the Play Store. If you got Android phones, I'm assuming you got Android phones. Go to the Play Store and look up Flutter Shark. You can do this. Any.
Flutter Shark. Yeah. I use it. Yeah.
And then what it does is it looks at the package you've got installed and determines if they're using Flutter by looking if they have libflutter as part of their dependencies inside their app. So you can actually be surprised that you'll find out what apps on your phone are written with Flutter. It's probably more than what you think. Yeah. And it won't be just your own apps, of course.
not only if they are using Flutter, also as you mentioned, which package the app is using, and also the Flutter version.
Yeah, for sure. So the way it does that, it's interesting enough. The way it does that is most people don't realize every Flutter app, when you build it extracts the license files from every package that is referenced in your app, puts it into one file with some separators, and this is called notices.gzip, and this is shipped as part of your app because open source licenses have to be displayed within your product if you're using open source code. Some of the licenses, at least, so you have to show the copyright, for example. So that's where licenses page. There's a widget inside of Flutter called licenses page, and what it does is it reads that file from the assets that's shipped within your app. So it's basically a hidden asset that's shipped inside your app that contains all the licenses from all the packages. So what Flutter Shark does is it examines that license file and extracts all the package names from it.
Nice, good history. Side history. And regarding with that, and also with the meetup and community, here in Netherlands, they have a lot of the Flutter community here is quite big. They run like every month, every 2 months, at least one event. And also the community is like, as you mentioned, Simon, the people is attending to every meetup. So this is very nice because you have this code, this base of people that went every day for the meetup. And also they were like very interested to see together the Flutter roadmap. It was very nice.
Talking about roadmap, should we get back to it? I will. You mentioned accessibility, right? And I think most people don't realize why they concentrate on that for web, and that a lot of that comes to SEO, right?
Yeah, and the something that I am really excited to see is regarding they at the beginning of the year they said they are looking for iOS and Android interoperability, like supporting calling directly from Dart into Objective-C and Swift for iOS, or Java and Kotlin. I'm really excited to see how what they have in mind. Just kill method channel, or just another way to call on the main thread.
Have you guys actually tried the FFI stuff at all?
I tried, but only for C++. I mean, not directly from.
So you're missing out. You're missing out. So I'll give an example from the Android side of things. We have a package called JNI inside Pub, right? Mm-hmm. JNI is Java Native Interface. It's the way that you communicate with the JVM from native code. So what we can do from a Flutter perspective, Flutter Dart perspective, is call the JNI functions to examine and to interact with the JVM. So this means that we can do things like get field, set field, create instantiate class, whatever it is. Now, the thing there's an interface, right? Just the way that we have method channels that interface to communicating with plugins, JNI is an interface for communicating with JVM. So what you need is a facade on top of that, which makes it treat objects like Java objects and Java strings. So that's where the JNI package comes in. What it does is it gives you a nice Dart interface to the underlying workings of the JVM, and of course Java has its own referencing of a lot of objects, so that matches up with the Dart one. So they added finalizer to Dart and did a bunch around finalizing the objects. So basically, when the Dart GC kicks in and frees a Dart object, it will also free the underlying JNI object. You can do that. Anyone can do this. This is built into, like, it's just a class in Dart, right, that you can use called finalizer. Just on this point, the point here is that what they've done with the threads and what you're saying in combining these is about the fact that I was doing this a while ago, so just trying to work with threading, multi-threading stuff, and native code is really problematic with Dart, right? Because Dart has its own isolate model, it has its own threading model, and it means that whenever you're trying to communicate to and from external code, there's a tendency to there's an expectation, should I say, that external libraries are being called and being operated on like the main thread of the application. And this was always problematic because you can't, and then also the return code, let's say you set up a callback for some native code, the expectation is that callback was running on the main thread, and that wouldn't always be the case, especially if you've got a callback coming through FFI on Dart. You couldn't schedule that, right? And the main thread was off limits. So this collapsing of the main the main isolate and the main thread, the UI thread of the platform together, solves these problems, right? So it means that we can now do very fast. So we're not doing asynchronous anymore. Every communication to and from the Dart VM environment was asynchronous, right? Because it's a different thread. But now they've aligned, we can now do synchronous calls and callbacks to the native environment. This is very important. So now the question is, if you were to make, like, let's say a package called Android or something on pub.dev that basically was generated code for JNI, it would mean that you could literally call all those, I don't know, location manager in Android and just call it straight from your Dart code. Now you can do that now with JNI, but you would have to write that code yourself, right? Like or generate it from like the Android docs. It's not straightforward. So I can see there's a world where we could be calling the APIs of the platforms now directly by having this Dart facade in front of FFI, and we could do that now, basically.
Do you think, because actually I have done a lot of plugins, and my first feeling when I started to work with this. I found like when you are using the breakpoints Dart, you cannot continue the flow in the native because at the end you are using the Dart tools, but you are not using the Android or iOS tools to put breakpoints or just to read prints or things like that. So I don't know if this could be a great. I don't think so. This will fix this, like to have.
Well, if you had, let's say you had a Dart class called Location Manager, and it had the functions, and all it was doing was JNI, you could put a breakpoint anywhere in that Dart code, and it would be the same as if you were breakpointing on the same line in native code, right? The nice thing as well is that all that code that you're calling, that was Android code, right? Android APIs that you're calling is all encrypted inside or compressed as part of your Flutter app, right? So there's no Java code to be, decoded or decompiled as well. But just taking a step back here, your point there was, no, I've forgotten your point. You had a question and you were talking about it.
Well, I mean, the main question would be if we will see like a replace of method channel, or this will just be as another way to do the same.
I don't think we're going to see that method channels go away for a very long time, if they do at all, right? Because they're so fundamental. They've been around for a long time. I do think that there's a possibility that a lot of plugins might transition to doing something differently. If this is the way that it goes, it's still early days. It's still very early. I mean, people could do this right now. People can write their plugins using FFI, right? It's not easy, right? It's not straightforward. And if there was packages available that made it easy, then I think they probably would. The problem with this is the thing, right? Like the problem with okay, so the good and bad thing about Dart, right? So the great thing about Dart is it's Dart, right? Like we like Dart. It's a language. It has a really great garbage collector. It does a lot of things for us. The async await, everything about the language. The bad thing about Dart is it's in its own environment, right? So this is the same though with Python or with Perl or with any one of these other languages. Each language essentially exists in its own environment, especially when it's a runtime environment, right? When it's some sort of has any high level language pretty much has that now. If you have what was considered a high level language, which kind of isn't now, which is like C, would be compiled to machine code, right, and run. But there's a direct relationship, right? So when you write a line of C code, it outputs pretty much that identical line in assembler, for want of a better word. So accessing or dereferencing a memory address is exactly what it will do in an assembler. And that will crash your app if you do it wrong. That's down to the developer's problem, right? Whereas with a higher level language like Dart, if you have if you misappropriate a class or you do something wrong, you throw an exception, that's caught inside that environment. It doesn't crash the app, right? It doesn't tear down the process. The OS says goodbye, and the person has to restart everything from scratch, right? So because of that, there's a problem here, that there's a barrier between what is inside this environment and what is outside the environment. That's the con of Dart and many other languages. This means that we have to transition that between the inside of the Dart and inside the Dart engine when it's running, and to the outside of the Dart engine to the native platform. And to do that, we have to serialize information, right? So it's the same as if you send something over the network, or you send something over any other channel. You're converting your operations, that is your commands and your methods or your functions and the parameters, into a serialized piece of data that's a buffer that gets sent across a channel to then be deserialized and then examined and said, oh, you're trying to call Y function, I'm going to go call the Y function with these parameters. So that is method channels. So that's exactly what that's the only thing that they do, right? Now that is exactly the same thing that essentially happens with JVM, right? You have the JVM, you have the Dart environment, but what we're doing is you're calling directly, right? So it's, you still have a sort of serialization in terms of that a Dart variable, let's say an integer in Dart, has to be converted to, say, a 32-bit integer for calling a C function or something, right? But that's way more direct. It's not like you're calling, you're serializing a buffer, copying buffers around and sending buffers over asynchronous channels of communication and different threads that have queues, that have all this. People don't realize that. You look at it and go, oh, it's just a method channel. No, it's huge amounts of stuff that go into managing that method channel, right? So FFI is way more direct, and I think it's the same with a lot of the other things that you can do. So coming back to the whole performance and direct sort of merging of the threads, it means that hopefully we'll be seeing a higher performance way of working with external libraries.
Great.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Also, I think they are talking about include more toolings for dev tools. Also improve the support in Android Studio, BA's code, the Dart, etc. But there is a last point that I would like to stop with the web platform, because they plan to further improvements in the core of Flutter Web, also the performance using WebAssembly and WASM, the new JS interop mechanism. Also support for hot reload on the web. Let me to be honest, guys. I thought it was so. Like they are celebrating. Okay, a new big step. We have hot reload on web, and it was. And in my case, it was like, really, guys, we didn't have it.
This comes back to that beginning thing, right? Like all that Java code operates as its own environment. So that's not Dart. So when you run Dart code, how do you clean up that state? How do you get rid of all those Java objects, right? And it's not a simple problem. And they've solved it, which is great. For them, they solved it. And this was a gradual step. They had to make several changes. JS interop is being just one of them, right, to sort of support this.
To be honest, I have a feeling regarding this topic because this year I have proposed to create universal apps, and I am really, really focused to be able to do that. It was not easy because I can name a lot of packages that it was crazy because you cannot say I have an universal app having if web, blah, 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 if the desktop, blah, blah, because that is not universal. That is a bit of mix. So I really wanted to do that. I really wanted to support creating user experience can be adapted for different screens. And also, I mean, a lot of them, Flutterfly Picker, I can name a lot of them that now have really similar flows. And the point here is, for example, with Path, I have opposite feelings regarding this topic because when you try to open a file or when you try to read a path, or for example, just to detect the platform. If you want to detect the platform, the web is out. There is, so it's like, I have a fear.
But what's weird is that there's that idea of detecting a platform in Flutter because it's cross-platform. There's the idea of detecting a platform. I'm running on iOS, I'm running on Android, or I'm running on web. But you could be running on web on Android or web on iOS. So it adds extra complexity when you're trying to design and build something. If you want different behavior based on what you're running on, and also there's no guarantee because it's just what the browser tells you it's running on, right?
So guys, tell me. Let me change a little bit the conversation because we are almost 45 minutes in the conversations, and of course we can stay forever. But I think Victor, you have something special to talk about, something parallel, not of course related directly, but something that you have been working very hard. Alfredo also?
Right? It's related because for
of course it's related.
Flutter things and Flutter roadmap, you have to code. And to code, what is
of
the
course,
new,
of course. So, Victor, what's it? Those little 3 characters you were talking about around Spain and some other places, and suddenly you are not having anymore these 3 characters.
IDX. Actually, we will not see. Well, I mean, I am still reading Project IDX. For example, in the roadmap, they are naming it. But probably we will stop to see it because now it's Firebase Studio. Because Firebase bring the IDX project under its umbrella, and it's great. And I couldn't be more agree with that decision because I don't know if some of you has tested, but it's great because actually with TypeScript you have a prompt and you can rest an app like by coding. Like I want an app for this selecting cards, and you just need to put your API for GenAI and it works.
Is that very good, Victor? Are you gonna get fired because you're no longer needed at your company, man? So Simon, are you using that? Have you used the Project IDX for your personal or work?
I've used IDX at FlutterCon last year to do competitions because it was so easy to spin up and have people code, right?
Yeah,
but no, I haven't used it on like a day-to-day basis at all, really. It's just I don't know, like just using a web browser and having an extra layer. It's just nothing. I'd rather have more power out of the machine and not waste a lot on like the web, but. I feel like a browser is really good. The thing is, like, I feel like an IDE directly on your machine is probably better than a web browser running an IDE. There's no reason though that they couldn't be running. Like, to me, it's based off of code, right? It's based off of VS Code. Right?
I hope to find our. I mean, I understand your point of view, but I hope in our short or medium time. Be able to do big steps with now Firebase Studio, because the emulators at the beginning we started in IDX with iOS and Android. Finally, iOS was hidden because they had to still working on it. But our colleges in working in IDX or now Firebase Studio, they are still working hard to explore the best way to bring Xcode, to bring iOS support. And I cannot imagine with a Windows laptop or Linux laptop building an iOS app. Also, this is included in the roadmap. They want to find a way also with Flutter to be able to build for example, a Linux app inside of the macOS machine, or things like that. So,
Victor, let me ask you a question. Victor. Don't you feel especially good because if we have had several conversations talking about IDX, but suddenly IDX is no longer a beta. If they change it to Firebase Studio, this means that this is going to be for real, man. This is the most important change. Besides all the other announcements they did. No, Simon?
It's here to stay now. It's here to stay.
Yeah. We have Kirupa a couple of weeks ago. We talked with him. Of course, he cannot say anything because it was a very, very big news. But suddenly we have the new, and this means that they're pushing it for real and under Firebase. I think it's a very good idea to use a well-known brand and also, of course, the power of Firebase and also adding all those stuff.
Don't forget the UX and the user experience has changed completely. It's not just a new logo. They
of course they have been working a lot behind the scenes, and they show up suddenly, and I was a
I'm
little
wait-
bit strange.
I'm
I
waiting
was
for-
thinking, sorry,
I was just gone.
I was thinking they were going to present something for Google I/O. That it's something a few weeks in May, but then they launched that. So what was your thing, Simon?
I was gonna say, I just can't wait for the day when they tell us, oh, we made it in Flutter and now it's going to be launching on desktop. That's the bit I'm waiting for, because then it might be a case that everyone's going to be using Flutter Studio, right? Like I feel like that's, to me, like it's great to have like in the browser, right? But you are in a sandbox environment, right? So as you said, you can't like load paths. You can't like, it's harder to like load in data in and out of a website. You've got to use the servers to actually like do a lot of the work, when not take advantage of local machines. So
Yeah, but they are pointing for this use case. They are not pointing for like professional developer that they already have.
oh no, I know that. But this is what I'm trying to say. If they were to redo that interface in Flutter, and then like ship that as a desktop app, that would be a win, right? That could take over VS Code. That could take over IntelliJ and other IDEs. Right?
And let me ask you guys a devil's question. Do they say something about paid accounts? Because if this is working hard on Google Cloud and Firebase has a pretty large number of hits you can do without paying. But suddenly, with this Firebase Studio, do they say something about pricing? Or it's going to be free
they have
forever?
In how many projects you can use Firebase Studio? Because the Firebase Studio links
you can have a number.
Yeah. So one, like in every Firebase project, you will have the Firebase Studio in this project. So that means if you have 4 or 5, I think, projects, the maximum.
I think it was 5. I'm not 100% sure, but
And probably in the future they are going to link with this Blaze pricing in Firebase, so it will be some service as the storage or the cloud faction or the hosting or something like that. So you will have a quota, and if you want to spend more minutes, probably you have to pay for it. But
exactly
but
the same that they do with Firebase.
Yeah, currently they have the limitation about the numbers, and also you have to have an Spark pricing, no, Blaze Sparking.
I can.
You have to put
guys,
your
if you search Firebase pricing, you can read a new row with Firebase Studio. And Firebase Studio, no cost for 3 workspaces. Yeah. Google Developer Program members can create 10 workspaces standard, no cost, and 30 workspaces premium.
Did you say what? Google developers?
Google Developer Program.
Yes, Google Developer Program members can create.
But you know that this is the brand new thing they have. That is going to be another separate program, Google Developers Program. It's something they have just created a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
10 workspaces standard, no cost, and 30 workspaces premium. And they say a note, some integrations like Firebase app hosting require a billing account.
Yeah.
So the pricing is clear.
Yep.
At least for the start.
I think there's
what do you think about it? Go ahead, Simon. What do you think about the pricing?
No, I was gonna say it's actually good. It's not. I don't think it's sustainable, but like I think it's an interesting model. They have to offset the premium against the free, right? So it only works if people buy the premium. So there's only going to be who needs 30 workspaces, right? Like anyone that's a freelance developer or anything like that. Like they're going to be going with the 10, and then when they've used up, they don't have 10 projects all at the same time. They'll get rid of the old projects and make new ones and store them somewhere. They'll get their repos. Yeah. So I don't know. I can see it work. I can see it working, but I think what we'll probably see is a different pricing model at some point.
Yeah, or maybe this is. I was thinking these days when they announced this Firebase Studio. I was thinking that Google now is pushing a lot to onboard people to use Gemini and their service. So probably they put this price to say, hey, we have this amazing product. Come to us. Come to our platform. You're already in Firebase. You can use Firebase storage. You can use Firebase hosting. It's for free.
That's a very good point, Alfredo, because they have something like a marketing mix of products. You have to pay for the API for the Gemini applications. You have to pay for the Firebase.
This is something that all companies do, especially big companies, amortize the cost of one product against the rest of their products, right? So you'll see this kind of thing take place. It's all about getting you locked into their ecosystem or using their products. That will let you find other products of theirs that then you might be paying for, right? And the other end result of this, another thing that we need to remember, is that all of us building apps is good for Google because the apps are launched on that Play Store, and the Play Store gets consumers and users to buy to buy devices, and they get a royalty off of various different license agreements are there as well. So all of us building apps makes the Android platform work. And this is one of the things that happened a very long time ago in terms of some Microsoft stuff. This is like before mobile, right? Which was they realized that developers were actually one of the important sectors that they missed, because it wasn't about the end user. It was the developers making plugins for their products that drove their product sales. So if they could empower the developers to build plugins, they would sell more product, right? Now what you have, this was back then, this is like in the 90s. Now what we have now is that a lot of big companies have marketplaces to sell plugins for their software, so that us as developers can get commission off of sales of our plugins so that they can sell more of their product. And this is a very common practice now, right? Yeah. But
I think also
that's the kind of model that this is, right?
And I think also the point that maybe Alfredo you said about that, this is maybe a lot thinking about new developers. Instead of go the hard road, having I would say expensive Mac latest model with so it's so easy. You say the same, Simon, you did with the IDX last year. We also have been doing many workshops around Spain. Víctor has been in a long trip around Spain doing things like IDX, Alfredo too. And it's so easy to deploy for a workshop with many people on the room that maybe they have also clearly this target of new developers, and also people, of course, developers that enter in the ecosystem, get to use the other products that already have a clear pricing. And this is the thing. This is what we do in that case, talking more about, I would say, Google developers, or even being in the Flutter community talking about Flutter stuff and so on, because we do we act as evangelists for other programmers, developers to use that kind of stuff. Okay, guys, so we are almost 1 hour on the streaming. I would like to start closing this, Víctor. So some remarks about, you want to talk about what we said or anything else?
I mean, a lot of stuff's happening. Firebase Studio, I think there is something that we are gonna still talking. Because Hirupa bring us the last day a lot of stuff that are on its way, so makes sense. And it's a big tool for do stuffs with workshops or things like that. Is the perfect tool to start to work with. Also the roadmap, I think this year is gonna bring a lot of stuffs in the Flutter and the Flutter communities are really supportive. They are doing a lot of stuff, or we are doing a lot of stuff to make it as stable and as practical as we can. So thank you everyone to be with us, and thank you, Simon.
Let's listen to for a minute to Alfredo. Alfredo, any point you want to comment?
Now that I want to share also with the people seeing this stream that it's very important to have this open roadmap community practice in the Flutter ecosystem. I think it's very, very nice in this framework. So yeah, I want to say that it's very nice to be in this or being part of this amazing community.
Perfect. Simon, it's up to you. You close the thing as
I'm
our
not
guest today.
I can't close it. I will say, talking about this, I think the biggest thing that, yes, the roadmaps are important. It is an open source project though. A lot of us as people that use Flutter forget we can contribute. And it's so often, there is so much that people do contribute, but so much more that we could be doing. The number of contributions on like the most recent releases is great. It's more than the Flutter team. That's obvious because the Flutter team is not that big compared to the rest of us, right? But then you have millions now of developers using Flutter. There's not that much still being committed though by all of us, right? So we have to try harder as a community to be like, you know, we can raise issues, sure, but we should be going there and going, what is this issue? Can I go fix that issue? And I think it's up to us to all go try, fix issues, and commit back to the repository, right? Make it better for all of us, right?
I think Simon, that this is a very important point that we have to devote a full program, and maybe not only a program, but activities related to this, because that's clear. That's a totally different point against other, I would say, Google products that are not open source. And that's the difference, that the community can contribute and has to contribute. I think very, very interesting point. So guys, thank you very much for staying with us today, and see you soon on the next Dark Conversations. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.